Ladies and gentlemen, I have for you my Tesla stock price prediction and earnings projection ready to go, ready to share with you here on YouTube. So make sure that you're watching this prior to Wednesday in the after hours when we get those earnings coming out. I'll provide for you some commentary on what I think is important to look for in the near term and in the long term, along with that Tesla stock price prediction and earnings projection, like I said, that I've prepared for you. So first, I'll share out the spreadsheet. I'll give you some commentary on that. Then we'll move over to the technicals on the charts, and we'll look at those as well. So let me pop this up here. Right here is the spreadsheet, and I got a lot of stuff. You can see it goes right from A to H. I have some hidden columns in here from previous quarters. You can see this is the Q3 estimate for 2024, the quarter-over-quarter numbers that I expect, again, based off the estimations that I've come up with for this, and then also the year-over-year numbers that we have as well. So for total automotive revenues, 21,828, up about 10% from the previous quarter, 11% for the year. Now, mind you that we have a higher amount of deliveries that we're dealing with, so that is going to account for that increase that we see from the revenue. Margin is going to be one of the bigger things that we want to watch out for. Energy generation and storage, we know that they've deployed less energy generation and storage. This time it was 6.9 gigawatt hours. That was probably Elon's little trickery there to make sure that it came out to that number. And then last time it was, I believe, around 9 gigawatt hours. I'd have to look at the exact number that was on that. So we will see a little bit of a drop, about 25% drop, assuming that the price per gigawatt hour that they got for revenue is still about the same as it was before. If that price has lowered and the margin has compressed, we could see not only an impact here for the quarter-over-quarter number, but we could also see it affecting the gross margin and then also, of course, the net income and everything. So we'll get to that soon. So year over year, though, and now mind you, energy generation and storage is going to be a volatile number. It's not going to be consistent, and it's probably also going to be seasonal. Most likely in Q3, Q4, we could see those boosted numbers, although it looked like Q2 was our high point last time. So we'll watch and see. Expect that volatility on a quarter-over-quarter basis. We're looking for longer-term trend growth there. So let's move on from there into services and other revenue. I have a 7.5% growth coming this quarter for services and other revenue, 30% for the year. So really, these two areas, while we are going to continue to likely see margin compression coming for automotive revenues as Tesla continues to compete and the global markets are starting to catch up in EV races and autonomous driving, as that competition increases, Tesla has to have more to run with. Going with that energy generation and storage, I think is going to be huge for them. Same thing for services and other revenue. So we want to watch for those to become a larger and larger part of the percentage of the total revenues that they make up. Looks like we're heading for another record-setting quarter. Now, mind you, I've looked at what the average analyst estimate is for the revenues. I'll show that as well so we can see what the professional analysts are saying out there. They have a softer number here by about 4%, or I should say this is about 4% above what they have in terms of revenue. 5.3% up from the quarter, 15% up for the year. Not so bad on a revenue growth basis. And then gross profit, I have coming in 2.6% higher than last quarter, 12% over what it was last year. Margin, I was a little bit conservative on margin because I didn't want to make this too much of a flowery case that we have. So I went with a lower side of margin. Instead of coming in around 18-ish, I came around in the mid-17s for this one. And so that's a little bit of a shrink from previous quarter at 2.5%. So maybe we have a little bit of hope in here, depending on what happens with the automotive revenues, and then also what we had to see to push out these numbers like we did for energy generation, storage, and services and other, which are higher margin businesses that they have, but also much younger and developing businesses compared to their EV side of things. So let's move on from there into operating expenses. This is one that I think there's going to be a drop in operating expenses, which I think can be a very good thing. And so some of that from their corporate restructuring was over $500 million. I think it was $622 million was that number in corporate restructuring last quarter. I think we're going to see some softening in this number. So we'll see if that happens, that we get that softening. Down about 6%, up about 16%. It looks like my 16-month-old daughter just got home here, and she's riding on my 13-year-old daughter's shoulders, and my 13-year-old daughter is wearing a giant chicken suit because she's in a Halloween parade this evening. I'll be heading off to that after I record this. So back to the numbers that we have here. Let me see. So yeah, 16% up for the year. That's not great in terms of expenses. And if we look at the income from operations, I have that coming in almost just over 18% higher than the previous quarter, in part thanks to what we saw from potentially, or what we could see from less of a cost to that corporate restructuring. So we'll see what we get from that one. So quarter over quarter growth, that'd be excellent if we had that. Year over year to see the longer term trend would also be a good thing. And that would also account for seasonality. So operating margin, I'd put this again at a low number, coming in at 7.1%. So if we go up above that, that's a good thing for us. Watch for OpEx. If that decreases, that's going to be a good thing for us. Now for the big things down towards the bottom of this, what EPS can we expect? So let me scroll on here to show you. I have on a GAAP basis, 49 cents. On a non-GAAP basis, 62 cents per share on a non-GAAP basis. So that would be the headline EPS that I would be looking for, which would be almost a 19% gain over last quarter, although down 6.4% for the year, or I should say on the year. So when we're looking at that number, and you'll see it when we look at the charts, when we go into trading view, 2024 is kind of like stepping in a hole. And as far as the analyst estimates go from here, it looks like this could be a low point in terms of EPS and also in terms of revenue. So we're going to watch for that. If that is the case, that last quarter could have been that low point. Maybe this next quarter coming up could be good, especially if economic reports hold out. If we hit a period of recession, if things start to lean that way, it's going to weigh on Tesla stock pretty darn heavily. It's going to put further pressure on those margins in order to keep the deliveries going. And I believe with the current Q3 deliveries that they've had of over 460,000, that they now need over 500,000 deliveries to show growth by the end of the year. So that's going to be something that I'll also pay attention to in that earnings call. So guys, what we have for the earnings isn't the end all be all of what we could see happening with the stock price. It's going to be looking at the longer term view of things. How are we going to end the year? What different price pressures are out there? What different things exist? Some of the stimulus coming to China could actually be a boon. Also, I've talked about this before. If we get a Trump 1 presidency, that could also be a boon, not necessarily coming directly from the earnings, but given Elon Musk's endorsement of Trump recently over the past several months, at the very least, that's something that could be good for Tesla stock. If the presidency goes to Trump, if it goes to Kamala, that might weigh on Tesla stock instead. So the election November 5th, we want to pay attention to that too, outside of those earnings. So let's bring up the charts for TradingView. We'll see what the professional analysts have to say, and then we'll talk about this chart and the technicals as I have the weekly view here for you for Tesla. We'll see what there is to see on there. So let me pull up the financials here. And this is the one that we want. Boom, perfect. And then we'll collapse that so you can see. You don't need to read the numbers on here so much, only to know that these are quarterly numbers. Where you see the blue are the reported values, and we want to see those come in strong. So they actually missed for earnings on the estimates anyway. Let me see the past 1, 2, 3, 4 times they've missed the analyst estimates. So Q3, the average analyst estimate is coming in at 60 cents, and I had them at 62, I believe was that number, 62 cents per share. So I'm actually a little bit north of the average, even though I put out conservative values in there. So we'll see how that turns out. And check out the earnings estimate going forward to 66, 71, and 83. So on a quarterly basis, you can see that kind of cupped view that we have here, that Q1 and Q2 and Q3 are kind of the low points that we have before we start to inflect, according to what the analysts expect going into 2025. So if we look at that on an annual view, you can see the sharp rise that we had up through 2022, and then semiconductor shortage, and then we also had less economic stimulus going around. Hi, baby. I'll be right back. All right, through the magic of editing, the time has collapsed, and now we're back here. All I got to say is when a 16-month-old gives you a kissy face through a window, you better go and get it before that opportunity passes. So back to what we see here. You can see the sharp rise. This is a tribute to a lot of the growth that we saw with Tesla stock price for a while, and then that slow consolidating descent that we saw through the massive consolidation pattern that was years long is through that pain that you see, but also bolstered by some of that hope that you have for Tesla for the future, or at least that I have as a long-term investor in Tesla. So hopefully 24 is that low point, and then we start to see that rise come back. Although looking out at the long end at 2027, it looks like things are a little bit hard to tell. But honestly, 2025 to 2026, I think is about as far out as I would look in general terms. And then of course, that all depends on what we're going to see coming out of Cybertruck. When does that turn to profitability? When does it stop weighing on the earnings and it starts adding to the earnings? We really want to see the different products and services that Tesla has really filling out that bottom line. And as Elon mentioned, I believe it's in the last earnings, being between two different growth curves is something that's definitely going to weigh on the EPS. So looking down here at the revenue, which is where we see these orange bars, those are reported. And we have a lot of beats here. It looks like Q1, there was a revenue miss. And then we had record-setting revenue in a Q2, and it beat the estimates that we had there. And then Q3, according to what we had, so 25.5 billion reported, and now we have 25.47 billion as an estimate, as the average analyst estimate on here. And I gotta say, once again, I'm still a little bit on the high side of that. I'm about 4% to the north of where they have it at right now, and a little bit more even on a quarterly basis, but you can see some of that growth coming into the revenues over here. So how would you have expanding growth, but pretty much somewhat even revenues, I should say, even though there's a little bit of revenue growth there, and that would be through expanding margins. So it looks like the analyst estimates per these on a quarterly basis expect that we actually have it actually there. Well, when you look at it on an annual basis, man, that starts to grow pretty darn large. So from 100 billion up to 150 billion, so 50% revenue growth expected from 2024 full year to 2027 full year. So not bad, although you can see a little bit of flattening. But like I said, I wouldn't look out too far, 2025, maybe 2026. And looking at these numbers, a little bit even kind of flat right now. We're looking for that next part of that wave coming through. Tesla Semi hitting full production, Tesla Cybertruck starting to fill out to the bottom line, and then other products and services, Matrix Energy Generation and Storage continues to expand from where they're at right now. So let's get to the technicals on the chart. So this is this is a monthly chart that we're looking at. And a few things I want to point out. One, the number one thing is the RSI. In terms of the momentum, the earnings are tomorrow, and the monthly RSI has us right at, let me see, if I can move this out of the way, I can tell you the number that we have on the monthly. We are at 50.01 on the RSI. So right in between bullish, bearish, and even furthermore, when we look at the chart, we're right in between the blue line up here, which is the 50-month, and the red line, which is the 50-month, SMA on top, EMA on the bottom, and we are right in the middle of both of them. So longer term trend, even the market itself says, gosh, guys, I don't know exactly which direction this is going to go. I don't know if we're going to be bullish or bearish on Tesla. We really need to hear what Elon has to say. And because of the monthly chart, I think not only does this earnings really make a big impact on setting up what we see for Tesla in the future, coming for us in the very near future, but also at the end of 2024, what exactly is that going to look like? Do we get to ride on this 50 EMA as support and skyrocket from here? Are we going to start to see that inflection upward? I would hope so. When we drop down to a weekly basis, there we go. The RSI for this one, 50.58. Once again, the market trying to make up its mind. The bears pushing down pressure on this red 50 EMA that we have. The bulls giving ground on the top side, and then on the, I should say that the bulls are holding a firm down here on the bottom side of this as the bears press further and further down on the tops of these candles. On this weekly chart, we're down below the faster EMAs and above the slower EMA right here. Once again, a bit of limbo that I said would likely come leading up to Tesla stock. The big play, I think, is going to be after it. Some people are going to try and play that coin flip that is the earnings. The earnings can be exactly what I said and still be a coin flip. Now, mind you, I think my earnings are somewhat on the positive side. It gives me a bullish bias on that, but it still depends on what Elon has to say and what is said in that earnings calls to really give a true interpretation of what exactly is going on inside Tesla and what the next step looks like going forward from here. So that guidance is really going to matter. So when we look at the weekly chart on this, you can see across these tops here, a really critical levels right around 260. And the tops of these happens to be around mid 260. So 265. Now, mind you, following those earnings, getting up above 236 is the 200 week, which is this yellow line crossing across here. Getting up above that would be a very helpful and very bullish thing. Staying above 50 on the RSI would be a very, very helpful thing for staying bullish on Tesla stock in the near term. We're up above the 50 EMA and SMA currently as support, with the bears putting a lot of pressure down. If we drop to the downside on this, I think we have 180 to look at from where we're at right now. I don't think that we go back to what we saw back here where we hit down below 140 at the bottom of this before turning around. Now, mind you, as a long-term investor, I find a lot of value if the stock price does drop with those earnings. So to me, that price would come on that, or the buying opportunities would come on that price weakness. Not financial advice, just my own ideas for my own investment. You guys can do whatever you need to do with your due diligence and your research. You can count this video as part of that information if you find it valuable. So down to 180, up to about 265, I think would be that range. Even if we don't hit it immediately after earnings, I think that that's what we're looking at for the spread on this thing. And if we bring the technicals in that I already have drawn on here, it's going to look like a bit of a mess because it is, I guess. But we can look in more currently. Let's actually drop it down to the daily chart. And we'll give that final commentary on this, that final piece. There we go. Let's zoom in this way so we can see what's happening. And I had this support down here at 215.68. 1, 2, 3, 4 tests of it today. And then you can see the resistance to the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I said it back here on this candle. We'd likely be stuck in here leading up to earnings. Tomorrow's the earnings. So far, we're still stuck in that. It might just happen that way. Now, this line that you see across here, this is an important line. We actually got our third touch today as a low price on this trend line. So if we go back out to the weekly, you can see that a little bit more plainly as I reset the view here for what exactly we're noticing. So this is the bottom trend line here. Maybe this is the time where we finally get to push back up above this value. Dropping down below it puts us back down in the consolidation pattern. The bottom of that actually happens to be around 150s to 160s by the time, I should say low 160s by the time we get out here. In the middle of that range, by the way, still right around that 180 mark to be watching for the longer term for Tesla going out from here. So for Tesla earnings, I anticipate that it's going to be a pretty good earnings. We'll see what sort of price pressures they were under, what sort of price pressures they're going to experience going forward. And the economy, watch out for the recession word to be thrown around, because right now economic reports are looking good. We have the election coming, and we'll hope that that is something that isn't skewing the results of the economic reports that we get through GDP and also through the retail reports that we have and through inflation reports. The more we get soft landing scenario, the more that the Fed signals that it's safe for them to continue cutting rates. That's going to be bullish for Tesla going forward. If recession gets talked about, if we see downward revisions and a lot of weakness coming for us and things start to really pull back heavily, the markets pull back, Tesla's going to sink along with it. So in the longer view, that's what we have to look for outside of those earnings. But within those earnings, this could be a decent earnings for them. There could be some bullish movement from where we're at right now. The market is so darn uncertain, and they are putting us down to the very bleeding edge of uncertainty, even as per the momentum indicators that we look at on the longer views of this. So what's my bias going into this? So I already gave you my stock price predictions. To the downside, about 180 is about what I'd say to the downside following earnings, that we'd move down to that point, or in a bullish sense, because I do have a bullish bias going into this, because if we hear good things from Elon going from here, that can actually send us back upward instead, especially if it beats the things that I have. And guidance is definitely something that we want to look for. So we need a message of hope coming out to get that bullish side of things. If we do, I think that 265 is on the table. So guys, that's my thoughts on Tesla. Let me know down in the comments what you think of my Tesla stock price prediction and earnings projection. I'd love to hear from you. If you guys want to see my technicals ahead of time, they're available at the Discord. You can also find that through clicking the link down in the description for the Patreon. Sign up, head on over. See not on my technicals, but my buys and sells. See my Tesla stock price earnings projection before it hits YouTube, which you guys will have it now, but it has been out there. Posted it earlier today. And then also, guys, down in the description, if you'll learn to do technical analysis yourself, check out that link for Stockmo Academy. Learn about the bread recipe, learn how to do the technical analysis yourself, and really learn how to empower your portfolio through the bread recipe trading strategy and that technical analysis. Guys, use code word doctor when you sign up, DOCTOR. It's going to give you a massive discount. You can join the learning community that's over there as well that can help you with those technicals and then can help you with setting up the bread recipe, which is also part of that course. And then also you can see the testimonials that others have put out there to say just how well that strategy worked for them. I can tell you I personally use it, Stockmo personally uses it, and we can attest to just how well it works. So guys, thank you for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. We'll see you in the next video.